sorry, the number you have reached is not in service. Please check the number or try your call again. This is a recording.
Are you listening?
Hello there,
I'm Darius,
and I'm Sam.
and welcome to the Oxfordshire Youth Podcast. This podcast is by young people, for young people, just to talk about the things that we care about.
We're here to give you a voice, whether that's the voice of your creativity, your professionalism, or just something that you're doing that you feel needs to be spoken about.
And if you want to get in touch and actually get on this podcast, you really can.
We don't bite. I mean, we promise.
And we promise. But the real question here is, are you listening?
I mean, are you listening?
Are you listening?
Are you listening?
Let's just get on into the podcast. Welcome back to the Black Lives Matter mini-series. There are some themes within this mini-series that may be upsetting to you. If it is triggering to you, themes of racism, bullying, and various other things, please we implore you to listen to another one of our podcasts that will be much more beneficial to you. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the Black Lives Matter mini-series. Let's get into it right now.
Teachers would so easily just either mix up our names because, we look the same, or would accuse you of doing something that someone else did because you look the same.
Louder, come on!
And that hurts, and it goes way deeper than it just being a kid running across a school and you thinking that, he stole someone's pencil case. Because that same mentality goes to the same people who will abuse their white privilege to call the police and say that this man has raped me when they haven't.
Aashika, I want to ask you, have your perceptions of the education system, the government, basically the UK, changed due to recent events?
Not really, but it's kind of made me, I don't know, hate it more, as in because for me in the UK, we always a lot of people are always we're not racist, Americans are racist, because we always study American history. We're like, don't worry, we're not as bad as Americans because we don't shoot black people. And they're like, it's fine, that's how. And I think for me it's worse because we normalize it. Like, oh yeah, we don't beat and shoot black people on purpose, we're fine. Or when people are racist in the UK, they normalize it and cover it as British humour.
Yep.
Yeah. When someone says they have dark humour, but they're just racist.
I hate it so much. It's been a big problem since years, hundreds of years, but we never acknowledge it. We always push it to America. We always stare at the American protests in the media, in school. We always demonize other people, but we never accept it ourselves and brush it under the carpet, which makes it worse and
Definitely
not less racist.
Such a good example of gaslighting as well. I've never had a word for it before, but now I'm like, I have to use it everywhere because it happens everywhere.
When people make jokes to you and they're and everyone laughs and they're they hate on you for being offended. They're like, mate, it's British humor, get over it. You instead of becoming the victim, you're the perpetrator. They make you feel bad, they gaslight you. I feel like that's so much worse. Just because you're not physically violent to someone, racially, even with looking at someone, like Darius said, the lady who looked him up and down, that's enough. That counts as hate racism. You don't need to physically be violent. So many people do that here, but we never acknowledge it. I feel like that makes it so much worse, especially with the George Floyd protest. Even everyone in England, they were like, oh, America's so bad, we're not as bad here, I'm not going to worry about it. No, it's the same, pretty much the same here, and you thinking that just that doesn't make it any better. Loads of people I've seen on social media comments being like, it's not that bad, I never do it, my family's never done it, we've never physically hit a black person, so we're not racist, I'm not going to join, we're not that bad, it shouldn't happen in the UK, the BLM, we shouldn't protest, it's a waste of time. Don't. That made me so much angry. I don't know how you all felt.
Yeah, I think that thing you said about comparing to America, that's the most truth. I don't understand why people feel better about being not the worst in their opinion. How is that a good identity? I don't want to be not the worst. Do you know what I mean? That's not an achievement, and that's not good enough.
Exactly.
Like Dave said, least racist is still racist.
People have such a problem with exposing, okay, America are killing people, but do you not notice how bad we are getting in the UK? We have literal gangs of right-wing supporters who believe that they are, blessed with patriarchy. I mean, the people defending the Winston Churchill statue, saying, "Oh, we won't let these protesters take it." Meanwhile, they're littering all around it. How are you defending this, and what are you defending?
With the Winston Churchill thing, all over like TikTok and Twitter, like literally had to log out of it for a moment because the amount of ignorance, like people were like, "Don't disrespect Winston Churchill because if it weren't for him, we'd be speaking German. We wouldn't have like won the war. You wouldn't have been free in this country. We would have been communist." No, like
some people still are free. Let's be real. Like
people tend to forget that World War II was fighting against fascism whilst they're becoming fascist themselves. And the hypocrisy sometimes is, it's hilarious to look at from an outside lens, but when you realise just how damaging it is for people of colour, people of LGBTQ+ identifying, it's so damaging. And to have people just sit here and say, "No, this is the way we've always done it, therefore we'll keep..." It makes me, the amount of times that I find myself having to apologise for my gender, my race, and my sexuality, just because there are so many who look like me, who do so much. The Will Smith thing at the moment, I've had to come off TikTok because of, there is a trend at the moment where, because Will Smith was cheated on in an open relationship, therefore it has become a thing on TikTok to expose how many women you have mentally abused to make cry come off of TikTok. If there is an audio file going around on TikTok which young men are using to say, "I've mentally abused this many women, I've made this many women," and I'm just reading this, and I had to come off of TikTok because I can't associate myself with a platform that... Okay, the thunderstorm is here, or I've said something to the wrong god. Right.
I completely agree with the TikTok thing, though. Like 100%. Like it's a. I mean, don't get me wrong. I feel like with any social media platform, specifically with TikTok, it can be an extremely toxic place. Like there have been times I have deleted it because you will see people, just doing extremely racist things on there, and you're like, but this is meant to be an app that's meant to be fun, and they advertise on TV that's meant to be like, woo, like make things fun, like woo, and it's like, hold up, so why is there this like white guy dancing to this song saying an N-word for 4 times, and like, or as Sam, as you were saying, like demeaning women in such a way, and it's like, this is messed up. Or just joking about mental health, and you're there just like, what? Like,
did they also tell you to get over it because it's dark humor? Because I've seen that a lot. They're like, only the boys will get it. It's dark humor. Get off. Like, you won't get it. You're not elite. Like, I've seen those comments, and it's like, no, it's not dark humor. You're just being hateful. Like, don't cover it up.
Meanwhile, there is a global problem with creators of colour and creators of LGBTQ+ identification who are being shadow banned because they've spoken out against what TikTok are allowing. I know people who have been banned from live streaming because they mentioned BLM. I know people who have seen their views and their comments decrease so rapidly. This is continuing. Decrease so rapidly as soon as they mention anything that can be seen as not, okay, this is just funny. But humour, again, is taken completely subjectively by the people who are deciding. And it's,
And I think at that point... Sorry, carry on, Xiao.
You want me to? Okay. I was going to say, like, the easiest way to monitor humour is that it should never be at the expense of someone else's well-being. And I think that alone, like, it just solves so many problems. Like, why do you have to make someone else feel absolutely disgusting about themselves to have a laugh? Like, at what cost do you need your humour to be?
Yeah, I think people need to reevaluate themselves and their personality if the only way they can have something to say is at the expense of someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like, if that's who you are and that's how you get people's attention, we need to be thinking about that.
Are you okay? Should we talk?
Understanding is a big thing. I mean, people saying, "I'm not racist / homophobic / sexist, but," and then you can just sit there and go, "I'm 90% certain the next thing you're going to say is going to be either racist, homophobic, or sexist."
Yeah.
It's so unfortunately predictable at this point, and there's so much that we need to do. And again, it comes back to this bottom-up approach to all of these issues. Right now, we need to be highlighting people of colour, people of LGBTQ plus identification, to show that they are here and they are doing amazing things. But overall, once we achieve that kind of bottom-up thing, and it no longer, at the moment, I had a conversation with Darius early on in this about, a few years ago, I used to say, oh no, I don't see colour, I see people for, you know, what they do. And I now realise that until we achieve that bottom-up way of thinking, I have to see colour, I have to see the problems that people have faced. I mean, and yeah, they might have gone to a private school, but they might have been set higher on the, you know, ladder of life than me. However, they will experience problems that I will never experience, and those repercussions from that could be so much more damaging and demeaning than just thinking they went to a nicer school than me, or they had, you know, a nicer car when it was first. The lasting effects can be so much more demeaning than anything that I could ever experience, really.
Yeah,
100%.
I think especially when explaining to, I mean, I can only speak for, like, obviously, like, white people, when you're trying to explain to some white people, you know, what sort of the issue is, and they're like, oh yeah, but I've suffered in this way, or I've suffered in that way. I'm like, it's explaining that, yeah, but you've not suffered from racism. It does not matter, like, you know, you could be like, for me, like, yes, there'll be situations where I have found things more difficult because of my body, like being a disabled woman, but I've never had to do that as a Black disabled woman. And it's a different ballpark, it's a different scale. And surely if you have been through something, that should not be your sort of, your point to say, oh, I'm exempt from doing anything, I'm exempt from bettering myself because I've suffered. No, that's your, like, thing to go forward and say, I felt something and I really empathize with this, and I know I can't understand, but I really want to do better and I want to listen. Like, that should be your tool to be better, to do more, not to be like, oh, that's my pass.
Yeah, definitely.
Nobody gets a free pass to be, you know, just allow things to happen. It's everybody's responsibility. The same way, if I ever came to Darius and said, you know what, buddy, I've been picked on by these people, I can tell you Darius would pick up a flaming torch and charge at them. And, you know, I really hope that Darius would feel the same way about me and anything. And it's like you were saying earlier about your community, of it might not be a problem that I face, but you will help me with what problems that I will feel in the future when I help. And again, and it shouldn't come down to a fact of I help you, you help me. People, I believe that people out there do have an inkling to say, I do want to help other people, not because of what I can get out of it, just because it is the responsibility of humanity to help others. We are an animal that thinks, feels, and responds to others. Why should we ever use that to be horrible?
Yeah. I 100% agree, and I feel like we need to stop the oppression Olympics, because that is the biggest, like, barrier to people becoming allies or standing by the people, because they'll just stand there, like Lizzie, as you said, like, be like, oh, I've been oppressed too. It's like, yes, cool, hun, like, thank you for telling me that you got oppressed that one time when you got stopped that one time by that police officer and they let you off. Like, cool. But like that's lovely. Like, I appreciate that you can try and empathize with the fact that you got stopped once, but that kind of comparison, that Olympics, you trying to one up someone, doesn't help. It's just about, Sam, as you said, simply being there for people, because you can't stand by someone and not, like, listen to them or take in what they're saying or try and gain some understanding, because that is where, like, so many of these barriers lie. On the last episode, I was speaking to Aria, and she was saying about it's really important to understand both sides of the conversation. So, like, why someone has these really, really racist views, because for the most part, it's usually because that's how they've been brought up. That's the only thing they've known. That's all they've surrounded themselves with. So to get out of that mentality is actually really difficult, because it's like, if you've only ever eaten one kind of food, it's really hard for you to then go and eat something else, because your body is only used to that kind of food. And it's the same with someone who's anti-racist. You can't understand why someone is so violently and viciously racist. But until, like, we all kind of sit down and have these conversations, like, those are the only ways that we can kind of move forward and be like, you know what? We may not have agreed at the beginning of this conversation, but at least now we can come to some kind of understanding that my view may not have been right, but I'm willing to make changes or steps to move forward in a progressive and positive way, which I think is a really important conversation to have.
That is so true, because if you met me just like 10 years ago, you know, I was raised in such like traditional Chinese family, and not just China, but the whole of Asia has such a big colorism issue. And it's not necessarily that we don't like people that are darker than us, it's just how the culture is. So, you know, I was taught that I shouldn't even look up to people that are different colors to me, and I should only worship white people, essentially. And, you know, if you spoke to me 10 years ago, I would not be doing what I'm doing now because I didn't know any better. And I just feel like if I can go from not necessarily hating people of color, but just having a weird bias towards them because that's what I've been taught, you know, you can unlearn that, and you can learn actually that's wrong, and you should love everyone equally despite what they look like. You should love them for their qualities and not for their race.
Yeah, I think like that's definitely a thing when it comes to like trying to improve these things, is that there has to be a level of like kind of hope that people are better than we think they are. You know, if we assume that everyone's just awful and cannot change and means to be as hurtful as they are, you know, and we sort of write people off, then we're not going to get anywhere. And sometimes it's really hard, but trying to think about why do they feel this way, or what's been said to them to make them think that this is okay, like meeting them where they're at. And also, you know, I had to speak to someone that I knew because basically she went and put a post saying all lives matter, and she put it, and she didn't realize why that was hurtful. In her head, she thought she was saying we should all love everyone like equally and things like that. She thought she was helping and things. And if you just go in with someone like that and say, you know, you're horrible, you're racist, you're this, you're that, the walls will go up. She'll go, I'm never going to say anything again. I feel, you know, really bad. Everyone hates me, blah, blah, blah. You have to go and meet someone and say, I don't believe you would want to hurt somebody. This is why it hurts people, but I believe you would want to make that right, and sort of help them into that opportunity of making that right. Because, you know, what they put out, you know, it was hurtful to her, it was hurtful to the people that she was hurting, it was hurtful to my mutual friends. Your circle is your responsibility. Like, it's your job to, you know, if we want to talk about being anti-racist, if you don't have a friend that you can call up and say, I was not happy with what you put, this is why, they're not your friend. You know, everyone in your circle has to be someone you can hold accountable in, you know, a progressive way.
Yeah, I think,
So true.
The conversation thing's really important, and making sure that people do understand both sides, because the reporting of the Black Lives Matter movement recently has focused on all the wrong things. It's focused on, look, they're taking away your TV shows. Look, they want to replace your favourite characters with, you know, ones that you haven't seen before. They've taken away Little Britain. They've taken away and that's not what Black Lives Matter is trying to do. It's trying to change things in the future. It's trying to make sure that we recognise when these TV shows were made, they were still offensive, but people were not talking about why they were offensive. We're not trying to change your childhood. We're trying to make sure you recognise why it is offensive, why it is so demeaning to stereotype these people. And moving forward, we need to create new characters and new, you know, new characters for people to look up to and say, that's my hero. Because what Darius goes on about a lot is that there isn't enough representation in media about Black people of colour, LGBTQ+. And as soon as you try and completely change everything that people are used to, like you say, it's the same as saying you're racist, you're horrible, you can't do this. People are going to go, oh, that's my TV show, oh, how dare you, how dare you. However, if you introduce it and you just say, look, here are some new characters, these are doing amazing things, and you have your equal representation across that, that's when real change is enacted. And you know, also overthrow the media because they always report on the wrong thing, and just, you know, stoke the fire of hatred all the time.
I personally want, Darius, this is a call out to you. I want you to write a children's story with a Black king in it. We were speaking about this the other day, and I think, Darius, I need you to write that book. I need you to.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I'm here for that because that's already in my head. So I'm glad you brought that up. So hopefully in like a couple like years time, there'll be like a book out called like The Black King or something like that. Like it's coming, like it's in the works.
You write it, I'll plug it.
I accidentally unearthed one of Darius's major projects that he was trying to keep secret.
No. It's not even started yet. And also, if you're listening to this and you're going to try and take my idea, I will come for you. I will find you because
I'm with him.
Exactly, like
be terrified
Lizzie
of Darius.
Literally, Lizzie is my bodyguard. Like she'll be there, just like
A door anymore.
And the thing is, it's funny because if you can't see us, you're only hearing us. Just know that we did like really like big body movements, like just we're pretending that we're like bodybuilders and stuff. So yeah,
Everyone's been and gone to a conference on power poses. They are fully ready to go.
So we're going to like bring this kind of to an end in a little while. And I think all of this conversation has been phenomenal. Like, this has been as amazing as I thought this would be. So thank you all so much. I just want to know individually, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you? Aashika, I want to start with you.
Black Lives Matter to me is very, very, very important because it's like a modern day civil rights movement. Like, it's a continuation of that. And it sucks that we need it, but we need it. Like, there's nothing else that's going to help us. Like, no government's going to help us because the racism that we're facing right now is very systematic, very social, and it's affecting like a lot of people of color and like just with their basic human rights, like economically, socially, work life, and we really, really need it. But for Black Lives Matter to really like take off right now, we need government reform, education reform, and we need more people on board. A lot of people, I guess, get put off by Black Lives Matter because they just think it's like a political thing. It's very like complex, like you have to be black or you have to be a certain way. No, anyone can take part in it. It's very important. It's not just Black lives, it's literally just people of color trying to get basic human rights that we they still don't have at the moment. It's 2020. That's what it means to me. It's very, very important for me.
Thank you very much for sharing, and like I wholeheartedly stand by everything you said because like human rights, that's all we're asking for. All we're asking for is equality. That's as simplest. That's all we're asking for.
Two words.
Everything is
really.
so like, yeah, carry on.
It's Black Lives Matter's 2 words really, bare necessities.
Because
Not
it's very
the song, though, guys, not the song.
Because it's very like systematic. We like, people always focus on the police brutality side, but it's also with work and also with the medical field, the legal system, especially with the medical field, like Lizzie said, loads of black women or women of color, they suffer, especially when they're pregnant in labor or when they have like cancer. They're always told, you know what, you don't need anesthetics, you don't
thresholds. Yeah,
like a lot of them die when they're giving birth. Like, they're not cared for like women, like or white women. That shouldn't be the case. Like, and also with the legal system in UK as well as the US, more black men are convicted for petty crimes. They're given like 60 years, 30 years, instead of a white man who's like raped someone. You know, the Brock Turner case where he only got 9 months. Like, or instead of a guy who, maybe a black guy who had like possession of weed, he gets 60 years, 70 years. That's not fair.
No.
And people forget that it's systematic, like, and we need to like make a change. People only think it's social, like someone just saying, oh hey, you're black, go back to your country. People don't think it's bad. It's everywhere. It's literally stopping them from doing normal things, stopping them from growing up. It's giving them obstacles, like compared to other maybe white people, like they can just go up, whereas people of color, especially black people, they have to go through so many obstacles that are so unnecessary and shouldn't be there.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you so much for sharing. Xiao, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
So I remember reading this quote where it says, be on the right side of history or be left behind. And I think that's something that really echoes with me, because to me, it's a movement that needed to happen. It's like the nature's balance been like interrupted. And it's like a tidal wave. Like, if you don't learn to surf, you're going to drown, because you have to get on board with what we're doing. Like, people need equal rights, like black people especially. And if they can't recognize that, like, do they live under a rock? Like, what are they doing? Learn. Google is free. Use your eyes, guys. But yeah, like, it's something that just needs to happen. And like, I'm just so glad that it's finally happened and I can actually do something about it, and I can spread awareness. I can try to be an advocate to show people that you don't have to be black to help black people. And I think that's really important.
Thank you. And it's like, as you said, it's being part of the change, which is extremely important. Sam, what do you feel like? What does it mean to you?
It always comes back to this is something that should happen. It's something that, you know, I say finally is happening, but people have been campaigning for equal rights since you know, racism first appeared, when people realised that there are people of other skin tones. And oppression will continue as long as we allow it to. So as long as we don't call out people, and so even just saying, look, do you realise what you're saying? It has connotations of racism, has connotations of oppression. The moment that we stop doing that is the moment we stop being human. It's the moment that we stop helping out fellow people and we allow racism to grow, become worse, and just become normalised. And it comes back to the idea of the media allows this. The media is run by, it's run by old white men who want things to continue the way they are. And unless we, again, social media being a toxic place, but at the same time, you can get brutally honest on social media. You can share information in the way that it needs to be shared.
Lizzie, what do you feel about Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things that has felt like a change, or what needs to be a change, especially like as a white person, is realizing what our role in this is, and that it can't just be a passive, the person that's perpetrating. That's not good enough to just sort of apologize or to feel guilty. It's figuring out what we actually do. And there are several layers to it. There's not being defensive. There's understanding it doesn't matter your intentions, which sounds really brutal. But if you run over someone's foot and you didn't mean to, you still wouldn't not apologize, not do it again, just because that wasn't your intention. You'd apologize and you wouldn't do it again. And I think so many people are not even entering the conversation because they don't realize that just because your intentions aren't to hurt someone, that's not a good enough reason not to do something differently. And I think we need more white people to actually be speaking and to be getting involved. On social media, I've noticed, disappointingly, like at the beginning, like I said, there was lots of people sharing, and the reason they were sharing is because it was very easy to, very passive. Yeah. Lots of people were sharing. All they had to do was click share from someone else's post. They weren't having to go and research themselves. They weren't going to have to source the information. They're in their little white bubble and they were able to collect sources from other people. And now, less and less white people are sharing. There's less and less material that's easily accessible for them to read, for them to share. And all of a sudden, it's going to come down to individuals. And I know we've spoken about, systematic or systemic racism, which is absolutely a huge part. But some of the parts that we can really do something about is what we're individually doing. Who are you following on social media? What hashtags are you looking at? Where are you getting your information from? Because if you're dependent on a trend of people sharing Black Lives Matter related posts, related information, when that dies down, are you dying down with it? Because that's not anti-racist. That's easy. Do you know what I mean? That's passive, that's passing it along. And that's not going to create change. So I think the main thing that I've really taken from, especially looking at, sounds trivial, but Instagram, is that if Black Lives Matter is going to move the way we want it to, each individual, when it gets quiet, you need to go look for that information. You need to go and listen to these other people. Don't expect it from your white media. Don't expect it from your mainstream news. You need to go and find it somewhere else and then be sharing that out. And we need to be echoes of Black voices, not of our own. We need to be sharing their stories, not what you feel, what you think, or how it's affected you. Take their words, pass it on with their name, with their credit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is absolutely amazing. And I feel like that is a brilliant place to bring this to an end. Amplifying Black voices are extremely important. All Black voices, may I add, because there are certain Black voices that get amplified all the time. Like Black male voices, hey, my voices are amplified quite a bit.
We have quite a good microphone.
I mean, and a loud voice.
I feel attacked. I feel attacked at that one. But I feel like, as always, all Black voices need to be amplified. Guys, thank you all so much for being on this podcast episode. These are some fantastic allies, and I'm going to let you know where to find them. So you can go and check out Lizzie and Xiao. I have put their links down in the description below, so you can go and check them out there if you want any more information. I'll also, you know who Sam is, but you can go and check him out. You can go and follow his Oxfordshire Youth Podcast Instagram if you want to go check that out as well.
Which I really need to start posting on. I have not got
you
around
do.
to doing.
Yes, you do.
Oh,
Sam.
I do.
Do the social medias, buddy.
I feel too old for social media sometimes. I don't understand the lingo.
You know you're younger than me, right?
Yeah, don't feel it. I am about 80 years old. In mind and body, I am 80 years old. I stand up and crack like a bag of popcorn.
Oh, I've been doing that for ages. I just have really bad joints.
Oh yeah,
same.
Yeah.
I feel like before we get into a debate about how bad our drinks are, because we could be here all night, I just want to let you all know that if you are struggling with your mental health because of all of the things that have been happening recently, it has been extremely stressful. Make sure you go and check out the links in the description below that you can get some free help to help after you've seen some Black trauma that has been truly terrifying. Thank you so much for listening, guys, and thank you, Lizzie, Xiao, Sam, and Aashika. Big love to you all. I am Darius, and I will see you next time on the Black Lives Matter podcast. Black Lives Matter podcast on the Oxfordshire Youth Podcast. Do I know where I am? Do I know what I'm doing?
It's your podcast
Darius,
now.
you're officially on too many podcasts, Darius. I cannot keep track.
Yeah.
Genuinely.
It's in the
Too
hallway.
many. But yes, thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Bye.